Okay, I'm going to angle myself just like that because this guy's on a stand. So, well, thank you very much. It's great to be here with you in my original home ANC here in Ward 1 and 1B. I want to bring you some updates from the council tonight and start with something that I know is important to all of us, which is public safety. So the good news is that crime is coming down. The trend is going in the right direction, especially violent crime, including homicides. But this is, of course, not enough. We need to continue to work to be bringing the numbers down and to keep our community safe. But many things together are making a difference. One, the new chief has really focused on back to basics policing, meaning getting everybody out of their cars and walking the beats and being out in community and engaging with residents. And then we've also seen a really strong push from leaders in government and also in community around getting our federally appointed U.S. attorney to step it up on prosecutions. One of the challenges that we have in the District of Columbia that is unlike any other jurisdiction in the country is that all of the crimes committed by adults, more or less, are prosecuted by a federal appointee whose job is not only to, say, go after the Proud Boys of January 6th, but also shoplifting. And the challenge has been that has not been happening. The prosecution rate has been abysmally low. And what that does is it signals to people who are committing crimes in the District of Columbia that it's okay and that there are no consequences. So we have all come together to urge that our U.S. attorney steps up and does that work. And I think it is starting to make a difference, but we are going to have to keep holding him accountable. Council recently passed a bill called Security C, which gave law enforcement more tools to do their work. The bill has specific measures to address things like carjacking and retail theft. It also includes an amendment that I moved that is going to study how to have the best witness protection program here in the District of Columbia. Another thing that's really low here is our homicide closure rate. And so I have a permanent bill that I've introduced to increase the reward and also establish a robust program to support witnesses, relocation assistance, et cetera. But because we are unlike any other jurisdiction in the country, we're kicking it off with a study that's part of Security C, and the full bill will have a hearing hopefully later today. I recently co-introduced legislation that Councilmember Robert White introduced, the Chronic Absenteeism and Truancy Reduction Act. It's a huge issue in our community, is ensuring that our kids are in school and making sure that the people tasked with getting our kids to school have the tools they need. So I'm proud to be a part of that bill. And then let's see. I have several other bills before the Committee on Judiciary, one that would fix the failing 911 call center, and one that would increase recruitment for MPD's cadet program, which is our homegrown program, 100% DC residents, more women, more people of color than the rest of our police force, and allows us to build our police force organically rather than having to recruit from across the country, which hasn't really been working when we're competing with every other police force in the country. We just had a homicide this week in ANC 1B. Officers were on their routine patrol nearby. When it happened, they heard the gunshots and responded to the scene. Unfortunately, the victim succumbed to his injuries. He was a DC resident, but at this time, MPD believes this was not a random incident. The individuals involved knew each other, which I don't know that brings us any comfort, but it is sometimes helpful to understand the why or the reason that it happened. Working to get guns off our street is a huge part of MPD's work, but it's also part of what the council has focused on with my red flag law, which allows us to report when somebody is threatening to use a weapon against themselves or someone else, and for the court to take that gun away. And also our work on ghost guns and getting those homemade guns off the street. Now, we received the mayor's budget yesterday. And that is one of the most essential parts of council's job, is to review the budget. It is a doozy, and we are still working through it. The budget was more than 2 weeks late, which means we are frantically working through what's in it so that we can hold the hearings that started today on that very budget. So here's what I'm focused on. I'm chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. That's the Department of Public Works. That's the Office of Administrative Hearings. That's the Office of Contracts and Procurement, Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection, Office of Risk Management, several of our constituency offices like Veterans Affairs, LGBTQ Affairs. It's a really important committee. And with the Department of Public Works in particular, my focus has been on protecting this essential workforce. There are cuts to that budget again. They are described as cuts to vacancies, but DPW has been working very hard to fill those vacancies, some of which I funded, some of which are booting or towing or trash collection, things that we all depend on. So we're going to be trying to find the money to restore those cuts, because I don't think that we can, as a community, really thrive if we don't have our basic city services being met. The budget does sustain the curbside composting pilot for the 9,000 households that are currently in it. It's a very popular program. We were hoping to expand it. We will still try to do that and see if we can find funds for it, but it's been really a game changer in a lot of communities, because when you think about it, what are we doing? We're taking food out of the waste stream. We're taking food out of the green cans and putting them into a rat-proof bin. And that is how we get rid of rats, is we containerize our trash better. We cut off their food source. So you can either like composting because you love the environment and you want to divert things from landfills, or you can love composting because you don't like rats. But either way, I hope everyone will start loving composting with me, because I do think that is the future for our community. Excuse me. And I will say that there was another thing that was cut from the DPW budget that was meant to go right here in 1B. That was my Clean Curbs program that I funded. And that was, we were talking with neighbors on 9th Street about a demonstration project to get litter cans off the sidewalks and clean up the streets. For those of you who have front collection, you know what it looks like on trash collection day. First, they're lined up real orderly, and then after they're collected, they're all over the place. And it's not great for anyone. So having a communal bin at the corner where you can't park anyway, that only you have the passcode to, and not having to worry about trash day, just taking your bag out whenever it's full. We didn't come up with this idea, but it's something that I did fund, and unfortunately that got swept. So, I'm going to try to restore that funding. But one thing that DPW is working with us on in lieu of that is they're purchasing 100 new public compactors, 50 each of trash and recycling, deployed in pairs. And they're going to be all around the city. So we won't get all of them in Ward 1, but they will be focused in areas that have had recurring litter problems and lots of commercial activity. And that is good for us, because we have both of those problems in Ward 1. And there's also going to be funding we preserved that I had funded that will go towards 30 brand new public compost bins. And so for those of you who can't participate in the pilot for whatever reason, those bins will be out in public space, and you can just walk out and put your composting right in there and close the door. And those, they look beautiful. So I'm looking forward to seeing. We're going to target areas with multifamily buildings, because by definition, they can't participate in the composting pilot. So stay tuned for that, but I'm pretty psyched about that. So that's in the budget we're in right now. Then that's money that did not get taken away. So we're going full steam ahead on that. Some budget items for ANC 1B. Full funding for, nope, these are not in 1B. Sorry, guys. Going to get back to you on that. There is some funding for Howard, which I know you care a lot about. It's $25 million for infrastructure that enables the new hospital and surrounding developments of Howard University properties. And here in 1B, something that I know you fought for very hard is renovation of the Casey Lewis playground. I think that was a really tremendous effort from ANC 1B and our Ward 5 neighbors. So thanks for letting us be a part of that. Congratulations. And we'll work to make sure that that gets implemented. Just to manage our expectations, our experience has been that the DPR capital projects tend to just happen towards the end of the fiscal year. So we should stay on them so that they get that RFP out, and also know that it moves slowly. There are some big cuts in the budget generally that I think are worth lifting up for everybody here. First of all, the pay equity fund for early childhood educators. This is something that we as a council established. In fact, I passed the Homes and Hearts Amendment Act in 2021 to raise taxes so that we could raise wages for early childhood educators. We gave them a raise, and now the mayor's taking it away from them. These are the people that take care of our babies, predominantly brown and Black women. And some of them make so little without these pay raises that they, can accept public benefits. And that should not make any of us feel good about ourselves or our government. So we solved the problem, and now the money has been wiped. And so the council this is a major priority for us to restore these funds. A theme you'll see throughout this budget is that anytime the council has dedicated revenue to something specific, the mayor has decided to rededicate that revenue to the general fund to close gaps rather than creating new revenue to do that. So this is a huge priority for me as somebody who has raised a lot of revenue to go towards human services and social programs over the years, because it's essentially an attack on all of the things that I've built and created for our community. It also wiped out the vouchers that we funded with that amendment, and it wiped out, that's for people experiencing homelessness to have housing, and the middle class universal basic income that we created. She also eliminated the ombudsperson for children, which is as bad as it sounds. We created an independent ombudsperson to make sure that our child welfare system isn't letting our kids down. And that entire office, which has multiple people currently working in it, was zeroed out. That is the second or the third time she's done that, after also vetoing the legislation that established it. So I guess we should get used to that, but it's really upsetting that this is not at this point established as something that we should not be taking away. There are cuts to schools all around the city. 200 positions were cut. We will seek to restore those cuts. The mayor's budget does include proposals for new revenue, but they're largely regressive, unambitious, and inequitable. The main revenue increases are an increase to sales tax and an increase to payroll tax. We have an opportunity in my mind to make bold changes to our revenue structure that also benefit residents. And so that's what I'm still going to try to do. And that's what I always try to do. Let's see what else. That seems like enough bad news about the budget. But here's the good news about the budget. Hearings started today, and the public is turning out and speaking up, and the council is listening. And if you want to be one of those people who turns out and speaks up, you can do so in person or in writing. You can do so in person, virtually, or in writing. And all you have to do is go to dccouncil.gov and click on the button for hearings, and you'll see them all. It's super easy to sign up now. We centralized the system like modern people. And if you wish to instead submit written testimony, there's also just a click of a button. You can either copy paste into the window there or upload a file, whatever floats your boat. So please do participate. The budget is now until June 11th. That's our final vote. It's a little later than usual because we had to push everything 2 weeks. to ensure that we met our statutory requirements for hearing the budget. So what that does is that shrinks the amount of time we have after the budget to work on other projects before recess. But I know that all of us working really hard at the council are going to try to get everything done for you all. I know you have a hard stop at 7. So let me just give a few ANC 1B specific updates. HIPS is now on the ground at 7th and T. The grant that I funded has been awarded and outreach has recently begun. You will see the team there doing harm reduction. Their goal is to work with people suffering from substance use disorder to help them find a path out of it. That work is going on right by the Howard Theater. They held a community engagement meeting last month to discuss neighborhood needs and how the community can support the harm reduction work, and there'll be more soon. 1617 U Street Northwest, the Zoning Commission has held multiple hearings on the map amendment to receive public testimony recently, and the next meeting of the Zoning Commission is scheduled for May 9th. I know this ANC has weighed in. Oh, one other thing about the budget. So the U Street Performance Parking Zone. Okay. So the mayor's budget took that revenue that's supposed to be dedicated to creating the community improvement district for U Street and put it into the general fund, which means we have to fix that. I will fix that. Nobody panic. But it means she needs the revenue. So DDOT has to move forward in implementing the parking zone. There's a silver lining. And they are. And I talked to the director this week, and they are moving forward, even though it's been a slow start. And what they're doing is getting the signs printed and the kiosks ordered. So that's great news. And I think that'll help. I mean, in addition to generating revenue for the U Street Community Improvement District, the point of that is to have smarter parking policies in this area so that people either pay or don't park here, and that there's more parking available to residents who live here. So stay tuned, but you should see some movement on that soon. And I am going to leave it there and see what we can get through in the next 11 minutes.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilmember. You touched on the two things I was going to mention, the thank you for Casey Lewis and the performance parking zone. So we're going to start with commissioners. People can keep their questions no more than 2 minutes, but quicker the better, so we can get through more people. Any commissioners have questions?
Can you hear me? All right. Hi, Councilmember. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. As I'm sure you're aware, you opened it up with this. Violence is really impacting ANC 1B. Specifically, the council and the mayor, just like you mentioned, is going down this year, but it's still coming off of a record high. So it's still very, it's still a huge problem. And that number is very quickly going towards the numbers that we had in 2023. In just the past 2 weeks, there have been shots fired right outside of 930 Club, which shattered a window in the Floridian. My husband and I actually were right there when that happened. That same night, there was a carjacking with a child in the back seat. This past Sunday, literally right outside this building, there was a large street fight where MPD seemed to have no resources or support, or I'm not sure why. They were just standing there and there was a gun brandished. And then, as just mentioned, just behind this building, there was a murder of a 19-year-old man. There's been policies that you've supported, the crime bill, which was overturned by Democrats in Congress and Republicans and the White House that supported to overturn that. Just as a heads up, I do not support that, but I don't support this bill either. I do believe in DC statehood and us taking care of that on our own. And then in an about face, it seems like the DC omnibus bill was basically a watered down version of things that just really don't seem to have a major impact. I also have not seen any sort of measurable tasks coming from the U Street Nightlife Task Force. Your website was last updated in May of 2022, and I have not seen anything about that. So I was just wondering if there's any updates on that. And what are your short, medium, and long-term goals to prevent violent crime from increasing? Not anything necessarily I'll just leave it at that. And I'm happy to work with you in your office on all of these issues. Thank you.
So just a small question. So just the U Street Nightlife Task Force is something that's run by Commander Bodeler, and that is a coordination that's in effect on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. That is MPD, DPW, DLCP, ABRA, and all the enforcement agencies and DDOT out controlling the streets. The U Street Safety Initiative that I led is the result was we're creating a community improvement district, which I just talked about. The criminal code reform bill, which was overturned by Congress, would have actually by now made a huge difference, I believe, because one of the things that it would have done would allow the U.S. attorney to actually prosecute more crimes by stacking them together and seeing less things pled down. He worked with us on that bill and getting it done. And now his hands are tied by the same things they've been tied by since the establishment of the District of Columbia. So I think it's a shame that we don't have it in place. And I don't know that I understood the comment about the security C bill, so maybe we should talk about that later. We address crime in a number of ways. One, MPD getting out, doing their work on the beat, which they are. The prosecutor actually prosecuting crimes. By the way, the two best things to reduce crime: arrest and prosecution. Say it with me: arrest and prosecution. Okay. So there's nothing a council member can do about that. But what we do try to do is make sure that all these people have the resources that they need, which is what I've done as council member too. And you know, the laws that we pass help with that. Security C gave MPD and the U.S. attorney more tools to do their jobs. So I think those are probably the key things for those who want to see crime addressed in the community. Making sure that we're out and holding those bodies accountable is huge. Now, the work that I have done as ward council member on prevention is stuff you can see reflected in the community and through the budget, whether that is violence preventers who mitigate conflicts and get people to put down the guns. And that has worked in the neighborhoods that we have those, which is Parkview, Detroit, Columbia Heights. We see that crew-based violence has gone down all across the city in the places where we have violence interruption programs. Services for people experiencing homelessness, services for people with substance use disorder, things that people think as quality of life issues. I have quadrupled investments in those in Ward 1. So I will keep up to that. And I know there's other questions, so I'm going to wrap that now. Yeah.
Maybe one more commission question before we go to the room.
Actually, appreciate everything you said. I particularly like to hear that about Howard Hospital. It's in much need of repair, so that's great news. In your opinion, why do you think, and you might not know this, but Mayor Bowser is doing these things that just seem a little ludicrous with cutting some of these funds? Thank you.
Couldn't tell you. Could I take one from Commissioner Fields too? Is that okay?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you being here tonight and speaking to everything that the council is working on this year. I had a question about Security C.
Yes, ma'am.
Especially with the drug-free zones, just knowing that there's a certain period of time that there'll be a drug-free zone and then they'll move on. I kind of wanted to ask like why the council made that decision or agree with that decision and the impact that you're sort of seeing so far as you guys have started to implement it.
Great question. This was really controversial and a challenge for me. The drug-free zones allow MPD to designate an area for 5 days, a drug-free zone with enhanced penalties for drug use in the area. To me, it was something the mayor and the chief really wanted. And so what we did was we said, all right, if you're going to do it, then I want to make sure that everybody gets notified so we can get services there before they start. And so that's what's been happening when a drug-free zone is declared. We get the word out to all of our harm reduction folks so they can get out and help people who are suffering from substance use disorder, not selling drugs. I have to say, so far, I haven't really seen any results from the drug-free zones. I haven't seen an increase in arrests. I haven't really seen a downturn in the use. I am not sure why it's that much different than the tools MPD already has. So I think we're just going to have to keep monitoring them.
All right. Thank you. We'll go to people in the room. I saw this 1 and 2. Okay.
Can you get me a microphone so people online can hear too, please?
Are we sharing?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight to share your views on crime. I realize that's a big priority for you now. And so my question is, I'm here about 1617 U Street. Why would you have an 11th hour amendment to upzone the 2-acre parcel that has the police and fire station and without any plans for what's going to happen to our police and fire station?
So the police and fire station is getting, they're getting a full renovation. They are very old properties. They are not serving the departments the way they should. I mean, there's major issues within it. It's a quality of life issue, and it's a workforce issue. But they are the right location for those two, and both have indicated that's where they want to stay after, the government sort of looked around and said, should we relocate them or should we keep them there? That is also a very important piece of property because it's right on U Street with good access to transit. And so it's a great place that we can also build housing above. In order to do that, we need to build taller than what's currently allowed there, which is why I amended the map. And that's why we're moving forward now. Once the zoning commission makes its decision, then the deputy mayor's office will proceed with the public input process and an RFP process. ANC will get to weigh in, and then along with the community, and then ultimately the council will weigh in. And hopefully we will have a beautiful fire police station with housing above, a third of which will have to be affordable under our law. And if I can pull it off, we might also get a library there. So we will keep the hope alive. Who was next?
Meet you halfway. I'm very glad you brought up transit in your last answer, because that is what my question is about. One of the announcements that came out of the mayor's new budget is cutting the entire DC circulator system. I wanted to know if the council has any intention of attempting to restore those funds, what it's going to mean for other DC funded transit, and what this might tell us about the council's commitment to funding WMATA.
Awesome question. Thank you. So we restored the circulator last year when the mayor cut it. And I don't know yet what we're going to do this time. We are committed to funding WMATA. That is in the mayor's budget. And last year I funded the overnight bus, which I'm very proud of. So, I think we'll do everything we can. Circulator, the big challenge with circulator right now is not just funding the route, it's funding the electrification of the fleet and the charging stations and for the bus barn. And so it's a big capital expenditure that is not currently budgeted. And that's why the mayor keeps cutting it, is because she's trying not to have to pay for that. And so the question is whether we'll be able to find that funding. It's beloved in Ward 1. It's definitely something I'm going to focus on, but I don't know yet what the plan is. Are we?
There's a number of other questions. Can we do like 2 more questions?
Whatever you want. It's your meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I saw this hand and I saw your hand back there. So we'll do 1, 2, and there's a few people in the chat. Yeah, that's who I called on. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm curious as to why you would recommend the upzoning. I'm curious as to why you would recommend the upzoning of 1617 U Street, despite the fact that the Office of Planning made that recommendation without doing any of the outreach to its Black neighbors. There was no studies done about the potential displacement of Black residents near that site. And so I'm wondering why you would support that without that being done.
It's always good to see you. I look forward to being quoted in Nick Deladon's newsletter tomorrow with whatever I say next. Upzoning does not displace people. Upzoning builds more housing. And in this case, upzoning is going to build more affordable housing. So I wish people would stop with the narrative that upzoning displaces people, because it's just wrong. It's not a Black issue. It's not a white issue. It's a human issue. Building more affordable housing in ANC 1B in Ward 1 is something I promised to do, and is something I am committed to doing, and is something that is really important. And the people who live here now should not get to decide who else gets to move into the community. In this case, please don't interrupt me, Chris. Okay. I think
Please.
I answered the question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you go on with your.
So. So we have one more neighbor who has a question. Sir. Okay. Yeah. All right. Unfortunately, that's going to have to wrap up our info session. Would have loved to have gotten to one more audience question. Okay. So, yeah, it'd be great if we could continue this conversation outside so we could finish our meeting. Thanks to everyone who came for the info session. We are now going to kick off our regularly scheduled 7 p.m. meeting of the ANC 1B full commission. Mr. Secretary, could you please read the roll?
Yeah, I would be happy to. Commissioner Handerhan,
Present.
Commissioner Sycamore,
Present.
Commissioner Lakatos,
Present.
Commissioner Kenzik.
Present.
I am present. Commissioner Fields,
Present.
Commissioner Harris is absent. Commissioner Jones.
Present.
With 7 commissioners present, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Secretary. Commissioners, you have an agenda before you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the draft agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? I counted 7 ayes. So the agenda is approved. We also have a consent agenda before us. This includes the March minute meeting, as well as a comment period, which we've done every meeting that we've had this term, at least in the past year or so. I'm going to ask Commissioner Jones to talk us through what the 2-minute comment period is before we vote on the consent agenda.
Yes, well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we amend the consent agenda to clarify that the 2-minute comment time for commissioners and community members also includes a limit of 2 speeches per person per topic. Thank you.
Second.
Discussion?
Does that consider like answering or asking a follow-up question? That second question, the topic, is it a different topic they have a lot, or we're asking just as a follow-up question? That would be their second.
A follow-up would be the second on the topic.
Is there a specific reason for this? Is it to clarify from last meeting? To clarify the boundaries of last meeting?
Because this came up. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
because this came up last meeting, wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that passes as well. Great. Moving on to, and thanks everyone for dealing with, the back and forth we have to do. Next up, we are going to go to executive officer reports. So I'm going to turn to our treasurer, Commissioner Lakatos, to do the financial report.
Thank you. One moment. Let me share my screen. Could whoever's the admin make me a host as well to be able to share my screen? Okay, well, I'll read out the financial report then. Okay, we'll just hold on that. One moment, please. Before I read it out, I will say the new QFR software exports weird. So it says we have a balance that is far lower than our actual balance because it, for some reason, is not recognizing the bank balance I put in. All the expenditures are still in there, correct, but it just doesn't. Oh, I can do it now? Okay, thank you. Okay. Alrighty, one moment, let me zoom in this around. Please bear with me, folks. Okay, so this quarter, so this is the first quarter of FY 24, fiscal year 24, that is September, it's October, November, and December of last year. So in this quarter, this is the second quarter. My apologies. That's January, February, and March. We received our allotment, so $5,238.09. We spent $13,013.25. I will go through our expenditures there. So one of those, the first expenditure was one that we began processing in the fall, but because of the new year, didn't process until that. So that's a payment for Cedric. So that's back pay for last year's work. So that's our administrator. A payment to Zoom. Here you'll see our allotment. These are this is a payroll maintenance fee. So for a payroll provider, another payment to Zoom, another payroll maintenance fee, and then a larger year-long subscription to Zoom. That is the QFR. And then our ending balance is $173,640.74. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Seeing no questions, I'd like to move that the full ANC adopt the fiscal year 2024 Q2 financial report as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to make sure we start spending this money. Again, love money in the bank. Sounds great on paper. Made it clear in the last 2+ years, we need to start spending that money down for the community. And I just want to make sure that's being done. Thank you.
Other discussion?
Thank you, Commissioner Kensick. That I fully agree with Commissioner Kensick. The fact that we have this much money means that that is funds that's not being spent to benefit our neighborhood. I know that all the commissioners are looking for ways to spend on community improvement in various ways. There are some restrictions on how these funds can be spent, so it's a little tricky. But if you know of a neighborhood organization that is doing work to benefit our neighborhoods, please put them in contact with any of us, but especially with Commissioner Fields, who is, I apologize, I forget which single member district you're in.
1B07.
So what? Yeah, 1B07 at anc.dc.gov. Please put them in touch with any of us, but especially Commissioner Fields. We're constantly looking for ways to spend these funds to benefit our community. It is tough, and we need your help. So thank you.
If I might add one piece of other information at anc1b.org, if you go to the Get Involved /Community Sponsorship tab, Commissioner Fields has thankfully put together a good details on the community sponsorships as well as a form. So that's also a resource available for folks.
If someone could drop that in the chat, that'd be great. And we'll make sure to blast it out again as well. Other discussion? Great. There's a motion on the table to approve the Q2 financial reports. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7 to 0. Thank you. Okay, on to our committee reports, which is the majority of our agenda tonight. Turning over to Commissioner Fields to go through ABR.
All right, thank you so much. I'm just going to request screen sharing permissions. I have it. That's great. So I have a quick slideshow just showcasing some of the locations we're going to be voting on tonight. We have a lot to discuss. Many of them are popular in renewing licenses. So the first one is Florida Liquors, which is located at 2222 14th Street Northwest. I believe that's SMD 1B05. And so they're applying for a retail Class A license, and we decided to support that at our committee meeting. There was not a quorum, so we couldn't take a formal vote, but we all agreed that this has been a pretty decent location to the community surrounding it. So because of that, I move that we support Florida Liquors in their application for a retail A license.
Second that.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
What I like to say is I've actually lived in this area for 8 years. I know the owner. I've seen him on many occasions outside cleaning the sidewalks, picking up boxes. He's just been a very decent run owner. And I think that there should be no reason why any of us vote no on this. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. It passes 6 in favor, 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention. I'm just reading that out because in person it can be confusing to keep track. So anyone sees something different, please let me know. Thank you. Next up.
Thank you. Next up, we have Capital Care, which is a medical cannabis renewal license. I'm just adding a photo so people can sort of visualize where this is. This is at 1115 U Street Northwest, SMD 1B08. And this applicant has been pretty active at our meetings. They often attend and are willing to work with the community. So because of that, the committee did favor them receiving a medical cannabis license. And so at this time, I move that we support a medical cannabis license renewal for a Capital Care licensee venture forth.
Was that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I have a quick question. This is medical use, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and there's, I'm sorry, I'm a little vague on the law. This is fully legal federally, is that correct? On this, because I know we can't do it recreationally, but this is still fully federally recognized, is that correct? Okay, cool, just double checking, thank you.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes with 6 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention.
All right, next up we have V14 or V Street Lounge, which is replacing P14, which is why you see that picture there. They're located at 2100 14th Street, SMD 1B05. The committee, again, we did not have quorum, but people did say that they were in favor of them receiving their retailer's Class C tavern license. So at this time, I move that we support V14 Investments to receive their retail Class C tavern license.
Strong second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I just want to add, I actually got to meet the owners about a week and a half ago. They took me through the place. They have some great ideas. I think that the restaurant was very popular before COVID, and obviously that hurt a lot of restaurants. I do think with the Reeves Center coming up, new development, this is just going to be an added addition, and I think it's going to go well. It looks really nice. The owners seem very promising. That's all. Thank you.
If I might ask, if I might ask a quick question, or is it just a tavern license? Are there any endorsements to go along with it?
I don't believe there are any additional endorsements, but I can look now.
Okay, yeah, no worries. This is also just for like later. I was just curious.
Quick question, maybe Commissioner Kenzik, you could help me answer this. What type of establishment is it? It's going to be a restaurant and any sort of music or anything like that?
Yeah, it is going to be a restaurant. Predominantly, they are going to have space upstairs that can be switched from a restaurant to a I want to say just not bar, but I guess considered bar. They gave me some of the ideas. Nothing was finished. They haven't completed the construction yet, but it's going to be predominantly as a bar. They're doing some things on the outside to make it more invitable with the windows being open, and they're not going to put that ugly green grass on the fence like they had for the last couple of years. But yeah, I'm going to say that it is going to be both. I don't want to, mince any words. They will likely have Sundays events because I've seen them personally and they've been there before. And the owner seems very eager to be open to the community and want to support the community. He also said to me he would have no issue with any type of settlement agreement, and we will work with that as well. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Also just following up with Commissioner Lakatos, they did request an entertainment endorsement for dancing to provide live entertainment inside the premises only. So they're going to offer Ford sports wagering machines, games of skill endorsement to include 4-peso Matrix District of Skill electronic gaming consoles. And so on holidays, they would like to request an extension of hours endorsements. So yeah.
Thanks for getting that quick info. Any additional questions or follow-ups?
One more. So this is the first time I've ever worked with an establishment who's doing any sort of gambling. What are do we have any sort of, I'm not sure how that goes about. Is it the same as every other? Yeah.
Well,
okay.
yeah. I do believe it's regulated within the district. So they will have to follow certain guidelines and other things like that. And like Commissioner Kenzik said, this establishment has been here. They're just sort of changing the name and sort of rebranding. So, we do have some experience working in a relationship with them.
I think it'll be interesting to see if we get more establishments like this. Any other questions? Okay, there's a motion on the table in a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstentions? Okay, so I saw 4 yeses, 0 nos, and 3 abstentions, which means the motion passes.
All right, next up we have G&G Fine Spirits. They're applying for a retail liquor store license. I believe this is a renewal. They're at 1939 12th Street Northwest and SMD 1B08. And from what committee members shared, there was strong support for this establishment regaining their liquor license. So at this time, I move to approve G&G Fine Spirits for renewal license.
Is there a second?
Second.
Pretty straightforward, but any discussion?
Just really quick, please support this. I've known the owners for years, really great people. They're great for the community. Everyone seems to like them. So let's go for it.
All right, any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, 601, motion passes. And next up.
All right, next up, this is again, these are the same owners from Capital Care. They're taking over the London Curry House, which is on U Street on 13th and U. They're applying for retailer's Class C restaurants license. The ANC did approve their stipulated license previously. So this is just pushing them forward into a permanent status. At this time, I would move that we support Utopia Eatery for retailer's Class C restaurant license. Committee members were in support of this as well.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention.
All right, thank you. I believe this is the last one. However, there was one more topic of discussion for us at this time, which is for Firehouse. They're a medical cannabis retailer applicant. They are located right here on U Street, a couple blocks down. I believe that's either 12th and U or 11th and U. We did have strong discussions about this in the APCA committee meeting. It's unfortunate that many of the committee members did only mention that they care about this because it's in their neighborhood, and they shrugged when it was in regards to other neighborhoods. The reason that there was pushback on them receiving a license was because they want the applicant to have 24-hour round-the-clock security guard on site. And the lawyers did reach out and share that they don't think that the ANC can put those terms in place, and that would be a huge burden financially on the applicant. Many of the other people who do live around the area have supported this Firehouse settlement agreement. They've been in discussions with us for the past 4 months, working with us as we transition from Commissioner Handerhan, who was chairing this committee, to me now. And so because of that, I do strongly support their application for a medical cannabis license. I do think that a representative is here for them on the call if anyone would like to hear from the applicant. But at this time, I move that we support Firehouse in receiving a medical cannabis license.
Second.
So just to clear, can I just ask a point of clarification? So it's to support, not approve, right? And is it the settlement agreement specifically?
Right, right, and the settlement agreement specifically.
Okay. Settlement agreements in the agenda packet for folks who want to follow along. Is there a second to the motion? Okay, we have a second discussion. I said one, because we have not done a lot of cannabis settlement agreements, I was wondering if you could maybe just highlight anything. I mean, this might be better for the owner about what's actually in the agreement, because this is new for us.
Yes. Give me 1 second to pull that up. There is one section that I will highlight that we talked about on our APCA committee call, which was the mentioning the language of signage around the shop. So, in addition to, so people are not going to be allowed to smoke on the property. That was another huge issue. But they're also going to take to putting up signage around the area, letting people know that, smoking is not permitted in this area. And so they did work with the people who were on the call to word the language. Give me 1 second. So I can pull that up and read off of it. They've also agreed to have a 24/7 camera on site instead of having a guard staff the location, so that there will be surveillance and people will be able to monitor activities that are going on site. They are willing to have noise mitigation. They're also willing to make sure that deliveries come in only arrive during business hours between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. daily. So thank you so much for this. I appreciate you putting this in front of me. Yes, those are pretty much the only areas that I would highlight at this time. Again, looking for the language about signage. Sorry about that.
Is it in the maintenance of public space section? Is that number 8, Commissioner?
Number 8. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much. So the applicant will ensure that the sidewalk up to and including the curb in front of the premises, including sidewalk planters, remains free of litter, bottles, cans, cigarette butts, trash, and other debris at least twice daily during the applicant's hours of operation. And they would have the sign state no smoking within 25 feet of the entrance.
Thank you for the kind of extra info. I have one other question, just because I know we don't have the single member district for the seat is vacant right now. The neighbors generally, is your understanding that the only thing that they kind of wanted to see in here that ended up not getting in there was the 24-hour security?
I think another huge issue for the neighbors was also smoking happening in and around the area. They've said that's been huge, especially for families and children, and also the fact that they believe people could be under the influence in an area that already has so many liquor licenses. So there were strong concerns about that in regards to safety and its impact on the local community.
Thank you. And then just one comment, great job with this. This is pretty new for us. And I think we're all interested in what happens. Personally, I'm going to be voting to support this. I know this site has been not occupied for a very long time, and that's a market condition as much as anything. And I am hopeful that the settlement agreement and the conversations the neighbors have had will generally lead to a positive impact on that block and getting another retail area filled. But is there other questions or discussion? Miguel and then Jamie.
Just wondering if Commissioner Fields sees this as potentially a model for other sites. I have in mind the box, of course, on the 2000 block of 14th Street has often received similar complaints about the upkeep on the sidewalk, and there's been discussion about whose responsibility is that? Is it the business? Is it the city? So do you think this is a model we want to use going forward?
I definitely think that their participation in community conversations is something to be amended. We did actually review the blocks at our last ABCA committee meeting, and we actually denied their application due to their proximity to a school zone. And just because the loitering outside of the shop has been such a large issue, I think the one major difference as well, too, is I was walking to this meeting, their security guard is actually outside in front of the shop, so they don't stand inside the shop. So any issues that are coming in or around the area can be mitigated. So I definitely do think they're a good example and a good model moving forward.
Thank you.
I think you just answered it. So there is security, though, during the hours of operation. Is that correct?
Yes, they've selected certain hours to have a security guard on site, but it just won't be 24/7 as requested by neighbors.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner Fields. This question is probably best for the applicant or the representation. So if they are on the call and would like to be taken off of mute, if they could use the raise hand feature, Cedric can take them off of mute. One of the terms in this settlement agreement, term 16, says the applicant shall comply with the terms of its security plan on file with the ABC board. Would the applicant mind just giving us a couple of the key features of what that security plan looks like? I think that might be able to help mitigate some of the concerns. I know Commissioner Fields, thank you for outlining some of that, but I just want to hear it from them as well. Thank you.
Will you send me this?
You should both be able to take yourself off mute.
Will you mute?
We can hear you.
Hi, good evening. This is John McGowan. I'm counsel for the applicant Firehouse. How are we doing tonight?
Great.
Yeah, so I heard your question just in response. I don't have the security plan in front of me, but I can generally go over it. I mean, meaning I don't have like the exact count of surveillance cameras, et cetera, but basically security plans are submitted with every medical cannabis license application. They're proprietary and obviously not fully disclosed to the public, but I can say, we submitted a floor plan which has compliant surveillance coverage, which means there will be, several surveillance cameras all throughout the facility and on the exterior of the facility. There will be access key card entry to certain zones that are, deemed operational back of house zones, if you will. There will be a compliant safe room or a vault room, if you will. And by regulations, all medical cannabis inventory has to be secured overnight in that vault room. It has to be well monitored. It has to have extraneous security features as like a motion sensor and a keypad entry, et cetera. And then as far as the security plan for, daily operations, there's a strict check-in procedure for any patients that wish to visit the medical cannabis retail facility. They will be walking into a waiting room where security personnel and or employees will check ID and patient registration. And that will have to both be verified before any patients are allowed onto the sales floor. Also by, regulations and by the security plan, no medical cannabis products can be visibly seen from the waiting room or the street. So if you were to walk by the facility or even walk into the waiting room, you would not be able to see a display case with any cannabis products or any cannabis products whatsoever, and that is required by law. There is signage that's also required, on the sales floor and in the waiting room regarding, who is allowed to enter, who is allowed to actually be a patient. And as Commissioner Fields mentioned, this applicant did not apply for a safe use consumption endorsement, so they have no permission to have any consumption of cannabis inside or outside the facility. So that will be strongly discouraged and not allowed at all in the premises. Other aspects of the security plan mainly deal with logistics of opening and closing procedures, making sure that seed to sale tracking is in place. Per regulations, all cannabis licensees from growers to retailers have to have product tracked from seed to sale. So, every regulated unit, every product that comes in the retail facility will have to be registered in the metric compatible system. Every patient that comes in there has a limit of how much medical cannabis they can purchase monthly, and so every sale is logged in that metric system, and so that is all also part of the security features. And then you have your standard just business security plan features, which accounts for robberies, incidents of theft, any emergency situations, and SOPs for things of that nature. And then, there are certain reporting obligations to MPD if the licensee is aware of any diversion of product or any other, violations of the regulations. I know that's, a summary, but I don't know if that answers some of your question or if you have any specifics.
I think that answered the question asked. So thank you, John. I think we might have a few more for you, including one in the chat. But first, I will turn to the commissioners.
Yeah, I just want to thank Commissioner Fields for your hard work. Really, it's really appreciated. And I also want to thank Mr. McGowan and Commissioner Jones, because I was going to vote no on this, but hearing what you're doing in the security measures, I never like to vote in another single member district when it's not being represented, as B1, B02 is not. But after hearing what Mr. McGowan and the questions that my counterparts have asked, I am going to be yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. McGowan. This is Commissioner Sycamore. Just a quick question. Thank you so much for answering the security questions. I know this shop is located below a condo or apartment building. Have you done any sort of outreach to the people in the building? And have you received any sort of pushback, or has it been open arms?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the Fold, but they were very nice. We attended, my law partner and I attended their last, or I guess it was in February or March, their board meeting, the condo's board meeting. We presented, we had a PowerPoint deck and we presented, and just to give them an idea of the operations. And I thought it went well. We answered questions. We were very transparent. We have not heard any pushback since that meeting. And I think that we all share, it seemed like their concerns were loitering in the alley and delivery times, of wholesale product and security. And yeah, I think it went well. I don't want to say arms wide open because I don't want to speak for other people, but it was a very productive conversation. And yeah, we were very transparent, and I think they were very appreciative of that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
We had a kind of comment question in the chat, which I don't know that John or Commissioner Fields, you'd be able to, I don't know that it's appropriate to, I don't know that there is an answer, but I think it's an important question to just kind of note. It specifically asks how many medical cannabis places do we need in close proximity to each other? Citing another one nearby. I think it's a broader question around density and concentration. Again, it's not about this. It's the questioner specifically says there's no concerns with this particular, establishment. But I think it is a question that I think we're going to get moving forward. So I wanted to put that out there. If anyone wants to answer, they're welcome to.
I'm happy to comment on that. Yes, I totally understand the concern, especially in your neighborhood. There is what seems like there has been an overconcentration. I just will say the new law that was passed and went into effect last year that created the very licenses that Firehouse, is going for. That law also created a setback, which means, new retailers cannot be within 400 feet of another retailer. So, and it's a first in time rule, right? So if you applied first, anytime after the fact, someone cannot come within 400 feet and get approved for a license. So it's, there is no cap on licenses, but what ABCA and the board and the council did was instead they created this setback, which means, there's only so much commercially zoned property that's appropriate for this use. And when you put that 400-foot setback, it limits how much of that already limited property can be used. So I believe at our last time we attended the ANC 1B meeting last month, I believe Fred Misali, the director for ABCA, attended as well, and said that, they are enforcing against shops that did not apply for licenses. I believe he said 1B was, they were going to visit shops that didn't apply. And these are shops that are going to be within 400 feet or did not apply for licenses and are still operating. So I know that's a mouthful, but long story short, they will not allow license. I'm only speaking for licensed dispensaries to be more than, within 400 feet of each other. So it'll prevent an overconcentration.
Thank you. I would like to move us to a vote unless there's anything you want to add, Commissioner Fields. Okay. So we have
there was one question online. Did you already read that? I thought I missed that. Oh, that was that one?
Yeah,
oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate you tracking that because it is hard to do both. Is it? Okay. So thank you. I think that was an instructive conversation all around. The motion on the table is to support the Firehouse license and the settlement agreement that's in the agenda packet. It has been seconded. It has been discussed. So everyone, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right. So that is 6 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstention, and it passes.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you, John, for being here. We really appreciate you for pushing through with us over the past couple of months. As he mentioned, Director Musali did attend our last meeting, and he did share some facts that I do believe are pertinent to the audience and the community that is here today. One of them being that the ANC is the only body that can protest a medical cannabis license or establishment. So normally it would be a party of 5 people who live within a certain distance, but it's really important for us and the formerly ABR committee, now ABCA committee, to make sure that we are representing our community well. Cannabis licenses cannot be within 300 feet of a school or DPR parks, and they inherited that requirement from DC Health. A few of the other agencies that are going to be monitoring medical cannabis licenses are DLCP, Department of Buildings, DC Department of Health, and ABCA, and they've already come up with some rules and some punishments for businesses that are not in compliance, and that does include cease and desist orders and fines that are starting at $10,000 to establishments and commercial property owners under their Medical Enforcement Amendment Act of 2024. The next thing that I want to highlight at our meeting that was a little bit alarming was Director Musali coming in and sharing a list of locations that would be receiving or applying for a medical cannabis license pre them being placarded or prior to them or that notice being sent out to the community. And the reason I do think that this raises issue is because applicants are very intentional when they are applying. I think that as a committee, we are intentional when we're reviewing them, and I think having that knowledge in advance sort of allows a little bit of discrimination that's been happening in the past, especially with Black and brown retail owners, as we know are already underrepresented within our ANC. So that's something that was really alarming to me, and I hope that in the future, when we move forward, everyone could be respectful of the boundaries and the order that is set in place to make sure every business owner has a fair chance at making sure their business is properly established in the district. So with that being said, our next meeting is going to be April 16th at 7 p.m. Everyone is welcome to join. You guys can find the link. Sorry, it'll be April 17th at 7 p.m. Everyone is welcome to join, and you can find our link at anc1b.org.
Thank you, Commissioner Fields. And I think this was the first time we've had a slide deck with the photos, which was incredibly helpful to place it. So thank you. I know that was a lot of extra work, but really, really helpful. Also for the audience, that is by far the most number of votes we're going to take tonight or behind us. So as we move on, just know that it will be a little bit more conversation based. Next up is the Committee on Economic Development and Chair Jones.
Thank you, Commissioner Handrahan. ANC 1B's Economic Development Committee met last month and discussed a number of things, 2 of which I want to highlight today. The first is a neighbor brought up the idea of a potential dog park at 625 T Street Northwest. I should have put a slide deck together so I could demonstrate to you where that is, but it's right nearby if you're joining us here at the Housing Finance Agency this evening. It's a site basically directly north across T Street from the Howard University Theater. Howard Theater, not associated with the university. Just a great name. That site had previously had the current control of that site is not entirely clear to me. DC owns that property. My understanding is that they had leased it to a nearby business with the hope of activating that space as some sort of public space. If you walk by today, you can see that attempt has not worked out as well as I think all of us had hoped. And so a neighbor, Parker Griffin, has been coming around to various businesses, community organizations, and us to try to get support for the idea of a dog park at that site. So at this time, there's no design for a dog park. That'll be a whole nother question. Will there be lights? Will there not be lights? What will the security features look like? What will the fencing look like? That is a whole separate discussion. What we were talking about at that meeting was simply the idea of a dog park. Several neighboring business. Thank you so much, Commissioner Fields. Several neighboring business owners and managers, as well as the Westminster Neighborhood Association, have submitted letters of support for the idea of a dog park at the site, and I continue to get letters of support until like an hour ago. The committee was universally supportive of the idea of the dog park. There are a lot of questions again about what the lighting situation would be, what the hours operation might be, what the security situation would be, but there was generally universal support for the idea of a dog park to help activate the site and drive neighborhood traffic and provide places for people to let their dogs be dogs that are other than the sidewalk. There's also, the committee voted 4 in favor and none against, none abstentions to approve a draft resolution that ANC, to recommend that ANC 1B approve a draft resolution in favor of a dog park at the site. I will not be making that motion today, and I've talked to Mr. Griffin and some other folks about why. After we had our meeting about with the Economic Development Committee 2 weeks ago, the a lessor, the person who is leasing that and may have control of that site right now, wrote talking about various other ideas that they had for that site. The vote that the Economic Development Committee took last month was taken without that knowledge. My personal feeling is that a dog park is still a very good use for that site, and I suspect that the Economic Development Committee will still support that use after hearing these other ideas out. But out of due diligence, we want to hear from the controller of the current lease, see what they have in mind for the site, and see how that can be brought in, how that can contribute to neighborhood needs. So I've asked both our neighbor, Mr. Griffin, and the controller of that site to come to the next meeting of the Economic Development Committee, which is Thursday, April 18th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. If you are interested in the future of that site and what ANC 1B should or should not support at that site, I would encourage you to attend as well. I'm grateful for the work that Mr. Griffin has put in, and it was a really good discussion. Looking forward to having the end of that discussion at the next meeting of the Economic Development Committee later this month. So that's one thing. Mr. Chair, I can pause for questions.
Yeah,
if commissioners have them, or
I
community
think
members
if there
have them.
are members from fellow commissioners starting there and then going to the community. I also know the leasee is on the line and is available to speak, but I think that's going to happen later this month. So Commissioner Fields.
Yes, I just wanted to ask who the person with the lease is right now, or which business. Yeah.
I can, well, so it's the immediate property owner, an immediate next door property owner. The lease is with Demped and that individual who has brought in another partner to think about programming in response to the fact that there has not been a lot going on at that site recently. So that's one.
And one.
Just to clarify with Commissioner Jones, dog park is something that would take a while to happen anyway. So we're not talking something that's going to happen tomorrow or in 6 months. This would take a little while to happen, just so everyone's going to clear.
And then just a really quick comment. Thank goodness someone is doing this. Thank you so much, Commissioner Jones and Mr. Parker, or what's his name? Griffin, Mr. Griffin, for spearheading this. I think it's a wonderful idea. The one thing I do want to bring up is I remember the 11th Street Dog Park that's owned by WMATA. There was a huge fight about that in 2018, and a lot of neighbors were going between like a playground for kids versus a dog park versus who owns it, who's got the rights, yada yada yada. So my biggest question is, do we know how? I believe it's Cleveland Elementary School. They're probably the closest like playground around. So do you foresee any sort of problems with people maybe wanting kids to have a place to play? Like, is this playground open more often or not? Oh, that is true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Swamp Poodle. Yeah, great example. Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, but I was just thinking about the past arguments that have been brought. So just something to maybe to think about, I guess more of a comment than a question.
Yeah, I would encourage you to bring up ideas for uses of that site at the next meeting of the Economic Development Committee. Thank you.
A couple chats also cited that it's a pretty small site, so that might dictate the type of dogs that would be like functionally welcome there. So I think that's like a legitimate concern to bring to the committee. Two separate people mentioned that, and then we are definitely going to hear about alternate proposals as well for that site. So it's not, not just the dog park site.
And for the person who said they'd like to speak, you just have to use the raise hand feature if you'd like to recognize. Am I? Because the person they wrote in the Q&A, I'd like to speak.
Yeah, that's the Lisi.
Oh, okay.
who
My
who
apologies. Yeah.
yeah, who I think it's probably makes the most sense since we're not voting tonight to. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, your chair, you decide whether.
Yeah, if Jason, if you want to come off mute and speak for, let's try to keep it to like 30 seconds, but if you can have up to 2 minutes, please do.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you and good evening. I am Jason Turner, and I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. I have been meeting with several folks in the community. I've been focusing on the LaDroit Park Neighborhood Association, the T Street Task Force, which Zoom that I was on earlier today. I'm very happy to see and hear from the members of 1B. And I really look forward to engaging further with Councilmember Nadeau's office and her staff, who I've met with down at the site, as well as the Office on Nightlife, the Shaw Main Streets. I'm looking forward to getting with that group as well. But again, I am Jason Turner, and I am the site director of 625 T Street for T Street development. Clearly, there has been a lot of angst. The site has had various different types of programming during COVID. Half Smoke was there, but over the winter and the past years, it has not been programmed at its highest and best use. My job is to rectify that. As springtime is coming, it is my job to make sure that the site, which is such an awesome site, is programmed accordingly. I certainly understand, as I was saying earlier to the T Street Task Force, I certainly understand the notion of a dog park. It's a great area. We consider ourselves to be custodians of the public property. So this is not about us, T Street, trying to force its agenda down to the community. We are very excited to talk about the plans. We have some great partnerships and letters of intent of really good organizations that want to help program the area. In closing, I will tell you that our 4 areas that we are looking at in programming are, it's got to be family friendly. We want to change the narrative of the site. It's going to be about clean, green energy. It's going to be about economic development, and it's going to be about training and workforce. So I look forward to speaking with you about all of that on the 18th. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jason. I think it's worth noting that a dog park would take time, as Commissioner Lakatos mentioned. And so ideas don't necessarily need to be mutually exclusive, and the dialogue should certainly be as rich as possible. Sure.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Francisco Alvarez, and I'm a neighbor of this site. I think it's a phenomenal location. Generally in support of any creation of another inclusive green space. But I do think that whatever goes into the design has to incorporate the unique elements of this area. That block in particular between 6th Street and 7th Street is high traffic, both in terms of nightlife and also motor traffic. So I would hope that the eventual design incorporates maybe some kind of natural sound barrier, maybe a row of shrubs along the Florida Avenue side. So please, for the record, because I think without some kind of sound mitigation, this could be a deterrent for children and also for dogs that get startled. My dog gets startled. Also, I hope that it can be tied to perhaps, again, this is such a prime location, but such a high transit location, maybe tied to some kind of pedestrianization. I know that on T Street, there is a highly pedestrianized street, but then there are also on the Florida Avenue side, some complicated intersections, including an intersection I've highlighted previously to Commissioner Lakatos on 5th and T. That is a very complicated intersection of multiple streets. I think we would need to tie some kind of signalization along that block to make it more amenable to pedestrians and their dogs. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Hussein Musavi. My name is Hussein Musavi. I live on 1701 Seaton Street. It's a project over there I'm very interested, near my neighbors. I'm very surprised of the commissioner. They don't know how much power you have. You have as much as power you have. The people, like Congress people, because we are the people voting for you guys. Don't forget about those kind of things. I'm really disappointed with Miss Field because she's our representative in our neighborhood. The last meeting they have in the zoning department, she came and she said, I talked to two people, and those two people, they are two leaders of our community. We are against the project they're going to do over there. And still she said, follow it. She support the project they're going to do. I don't have access to a lot of powerful people like you guys they have. I don't know how our voice they have to hear somebody listen to us. We are against the project they have over there. And today, our Congress council lady tried to say the housing. When you make housing, you need service. If you cannot provide service, your idea all doesn't make any sense. You know, right now we have a school problem with our community. How you can have more housing and you do not have service for the kids? Because if the family going to live, it's not individual, respectful people from police department, from fire department, from teacher, it serves us. Another problem I have with this project, they have the police department and fire department already using this land, this property. If we and then service to us, very appreciated service, especially police department. It's not service to us, service to the city, because anytime any places they need attention of the police, they gathering in that police department. If they remove the police department from there, even the city even needs service from police department. How he can get it? I don't know why they're not thinking about this kind of thing. They have one idea and then
Well, can we maybe, so we were talking about the dog park, but actually 1617 is next on the agenda to talk about, right? Oh, Reeves is next. Okay. So that's the time limit for the comment. I think on the police station and fire station specifics, the council member did answer that. I think how do you want to handle questions about 1617 U Street as part of the committee update?
At our last meeting of the Economic Development Committee of the ANC 1B, we did not discuss the substance of the 1617 U Street map amendments. The ANC has, I believe, passed two resolutions, one in favor of the map amendment and one discussing uses we would like to see at that site, regardless of its zoning. To the extent that we discussed the 1617 U Street site at the last meeting of ANC 1B's Economic Development Committee, it was just to give updates on the process at the Zoning Commission. I believe that you are aware of that, but as others may not know, that process is ongoing. There has been a lot of room for public comment there after ANC 1B has had a lot of room for public comment. And there will continue to be room for public comment on, I believe, as Councilmember Nadeau said, May 9th at the Zoning Commission.
You know,
We have already had a lot of meetings on this and voted several times. And so I just want to make sure that your comments are being heard by the entity that's going to vote on it next.
More of your own power. You don't have to follow the council person. You have listening to the people in community. If community, we collect
Completely agree.
1,000 pages. You have to listen to the community. You are a representative of the community. I personal vote, but I'm not a person who know a lot of people in the city. You are my representative.
That's right.
Don't blank your eyes and follow the commissioner, what the commissioner. We have a lot of questions. We never get any answer.
I think we've tried to answer the questions that we've gotten. If you have a specific question you'd like to ask us now, I think we can maybe take one.
Another question I have is what happened to police department? if the police department leave or for the.
We've answered that question, I think, several times, and
So
I know you
if
may
you
not
want
agree,
to
which
repair the
I
police
understand, but
department,
I've
what
answered that
happened to our
question.
Approximately
community?
2 years ago,
We already get service from them.
approximately 2 years ago, in the 2022 March Madness event, which is the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development, they have this they show off every year what they intend to release RFPs for. At that time, they showed off the 1617 and 1617U and 1620 V Street site. And at that point, they already made a declaration that the fire station and the police station use would be retained. And we've heard that message consistently from DIMPED in the
But
meantime.
they guarantee to return, or only politicians say they return. I cannot trust any politics.
I
be
don't know
honest
how
with
to
you.
resolve your comment, because you're asking politicians, if you already don't trust the politicians when I don't know what promise you're looking. They've made the
I
promise,
want-
and if you don't believe it, I understand it. It's
I
good
want-
to be
I
good to
want
doubt
if
that.
They said that the police department stay. They want to say, yeah, there's a stay. The only thing the word they say, when the police department, they want to fix it. What happened to our community? We have a lot of questions. Nobody answer us.
But point of order, with due respect, I understand what you're saying, and we've had numerous, and we'll continue to have numerous discussions over the years. We have a hard stop in this building.
Thank you.
We are in person. So, Mr. Musavi, with due respect, you're far over your time. Mr. Chair, could we please continue?
We could stay after and talk more, but I do think we should get on with the meeting. Any other Economic Development Committee updates?
That's it on the dog park business. As far as other business, we did not take a vote on anything regarding the Reeves Center. But we got an update from the Mr. Whit Smith from the from the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, or DEMPED. I was a little disappointed by the news. Mr. Smith said that effectively in a fastest case scenario, we can expect demolition and then reconstruction of that site to begin no earlier than approximately September of 2026. I think that was a surprise to all of us, including the commissioners such as Commissioner Handerhan, who have worked on this for far longer than I have. The timeline would look something like this. Tenants are expected to leave the property by the end of this calendar year. So that includes the post office and a couple of other government services. The hope is that the post office will come back, but we don't know what their plan in the interim period is. The DEMPED will propose a disposition package to the council in approximately September or October of this year, 2024. If the council approves that package, the disposition would still take approximately 2 years to convey as a lease, or actually go over to allow the chosen developer to begin any substantive changes to the property. Additionally, DIMPED said that they may seek zoning changes or a map amendment because the site has multiple zonings. And the precise details of what the developer hopes to do at that site might not be compatible with precisely the current zoning. We're not certain about that. We'll keep you informed. That was also news to, I think, all of us. I learned about it in an oversight hearing in response when DIMPED responded to council member questions. For any map amendments, they can take a while. DIMPED gave us a timeline of approximately 10 to 12 months and said that this would happen sort of concurrently with the 2-year period of the mentioned previously. So again, all this adds up to a timeline that I think the majority of our committee was disappointed with no substantive physical changes to the site until September 2026. No motions were made, no votes were taken about this topic. There are other minor topics that we began discussion about, but none of them are mature enough yet to, no votes were taken on those, and none of them are mature enough yet to bring to the commission. I hope to discuss them further at later meetings. The next meeting of there's a question in the audience before I carry on.
Hi, my name is Courtney Stockman. Thanks for your work. So to be clear, the Reeves Center there was an RFP process and a plan for the space before a map amendment process?
The Reef Center was already predominantly zoned residential high density, if I recall. The FLUM, the future land use map,
Correct.
zoned the entire parcel because it's not entirely in the same way. So I think the understanding, and honestly, this is confusing for me too. I thought they had already resolved all the zoning ahead of time, but they took care of they were saying this way, resolved the zoning. We did the RFP process, or the community RFP process before even before all of us were on the ANC. And then, we went through all that, and then now we're here. We went through 2 RFPs, I think it was. How many years? It's been a lot.
There were 2 RFPs, and they testified multiple times that they were not seeking zoning relief for the site.
Okay, and I think that's at odds with 1617, for example, where we're doing the map amendment first before there's a project discussed. A couple other just comments from the neighborhood. Commissioner Fields, we love your work. You're fabulous. But we were disappointed, or I'll speak for myself. I was disappointed in your testimony at one of the zoning meetings where you didn't make mention of your very wise prior requests in terms of having some sort of data-driven process for the zoning. So I just wanted to point that out, that has disappointed a number of folks, that was not present in your testimony to the zoning commission. And the question that hasn't been answered, because DUMPED has said that on one of these many meetings that the police station, fire station may or may not return. That's the issue. They may come back and correct that statement, and I think they need to if that's the intention, but that statement still stands out there. And the question that definitely has not been answered is, where would they go temporarily during a very long construction process? Thank you.
So I hear you guys loud and clear. I've heard that you actually, it's in 3 days from now, it'll be a year since we as a group voted in favor. Some of the players are no longer here. I've said that in my testimony statement. 2 actually are not here. I still know that I don't have the numbers in terms of pulling that back, but I do understand you. I hear you loud and clear. I might not be your representative, but I do have some concerns with all of this. And for instance, on something that Commissioner Jones had posed his hand, his X account, which was, was talking about now Mayor Bowser is trying to do something possibly with the Reeves Center and having the basketball team have a court, like a semi. So my point is who knows if Bowser is going to be here in 3 years? Who knows when the developer decides to start? They can say, we planned on having the state-of-the-art police, and we planned on having a fire station. But guess what? We don't have the money for it. And the new mayor moves, okay, you don't have the money for it. Well, at least we're getting some more housing. So there, again, I said the same thing last year at this time, 3 days from now. Some of the guarantees to me aren't fully guaranteed. So, I mean, we just have to be honest and be frank with that. And that's it. I think at this point we should move on with the conversation. Thank you.
I just have one quick question because it's now been brought up twice. And I'm not clear on this. Temporarily, where would the police station and the fire station go? I know it's been addressed a few times, but I'm not even clear on where that is. Do we have an answer for that?
I don't have any information about that.
Yeah, neither do I. The permit, maybe we can follow up offline about the inconsistency around the permanent return, because I thought it was pretty clear on that. Temporarily, though, I don't know. There's I think we'll have time for more comments, but there's a hand in the chat. Just want to acknowledge. I don't want to forget our virtual people.
Hi
Randy,
there.
we can hear you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think your point on the Reef Center is very disheartening, but I think it's important to keep that in mind. Moving forward as an ANC, that PUDs really are a better approach to holistic zoning and development as a process. And, by just kind of going along with what DIMPED and OP want to do may not be the right result for the ANC. And I think you're going to see that potentially bear, more problems on 1617. And I will comment that during the testimony, because I'm a party in opposition on the zoning case, DEMPED and OP, when asked under oath as to the permanent relocation of the police and fire station, were non-committal. Thank you.
Comments.
Thank you. If I can, Nancy Turnbull, I live a half a block from the police department. I live on Seaton Street, but the commander of the police department had told us that in fact, his understanding was that the fire department would move permanently and the police department, they would do the destruction of the fire department and the police department would stay where they are until that's done. Then the police department would move where the fire department is located. And then OP, the Office of Planning, during the first or second zoning meeting, I'm not sure which now, basically confirmed that. So I realize all this can change a million times between now and when this happens, but it sounded at the time like they were thinking of having the police department stay, essentially relocate, but stay, and the fire department would go somewhere else permanently.
The position of the
If that
ANC is clear on this. We, in the resolution that we passed about uses we want to see at the site, that is specifically, we have asked that the police station and the fire station stay at that site in addition to other uses. That I know that Commissioner Hanrahan, when he was leading the Economic Development Committee, he did a variety of ways of trying to get the public's input, and that was by far the #1 priority of basically everybody who gave feedback about what uses they wanted to see at the site. I obviously can't speak for the whole commission, but the last time we did speak on this issue, that was our stance, is that the police, that site ought to be used to house the police and fire station again after it's renewed.
Mr. Randy Jones would like to follow up.
Randy.
Hi.
We heard you for a sec and then you went off line.
Randy, you're currently muted. Thank you.
Oh yeah, muted, unmuted. At any rate, yeah, I think the better approach in the future would be, to really memorialize it and put it in writing. And the best way to do that is with a PUD, or to extract some sort of concession agreement that can run with the land, to ensure that before, offering the ANC support. So I think a key, what's done is done, but, probably moving forward with things like this, the ANC can actually, get what it wants done, in exchange for support on large projects like this. And that's not out of the realm to put it in writing, via development agreement, and then support the zoning. So all those conditions you guys put in the resolution, rather than a firm suggestion, you could have actually had that, and then given your support in exchange for that. Just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Randy. Commissioner Fields.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Jones, for, speaking about this, and Commissioner Handerham for your work on this in the year prior. I just do want to speak because I know a lot of residents here are in my SMD, and I feel honored to represent you. This is, going to impact the community on a large scale. And so I understand why there are so many comments and why there are so many concerns. However, I want to first start by saying that it's important to include other people's opinions outside of your own, and the potential that people could be moving to this area and you could be getting new neighbors, which would add to the vibrance of the community. I'll start with what you stated, which was about the data that I requested. The data that I requested was that we do an impact study based off of the results of the zoning decision prior to the request for proposals. So because there's been no zoning decision, we sort of have not poured into looking at an impact of displacement because we don't really know what we're looking at yet in regards of, how much capacity the site could hold, what could be on the site, and, how that could affect surrounding neighbors. So I did want to address that as well too. Secondly, we have had a lot of community outreach in regards to this. I met with the Musabis before. It's clear that you guys are not happy with my stance or my testimony, and that's understandable. We've had multiple community meetings at the site with Commissioner Handerhan last year and with the Office of Planning. With that being said, I was also informed, if you guys were on the call where we discussed this with the Zoning Commission, I reached out to the Office of Planning, thanks to Randy, who had another conversation with myself personally, and they shared that after a zoning decision is made, that they would like to recommend an amendment to have a step back of 40 feet above a height of 60 feet along the building, relatively narrow to V Street. So the Office of Planning is already looking at making sure that the buildings directly across from the residents' homes are in alignment with the neighborhood and the feel of the area. So I'm definitely advocating for you guys' request, or what it seems like you are requesting, in regards to OP and how they want to align with the comprehensive plan for the future land use map. I'm happy to have conversations afterwards, but did want to address that. So thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I propose that we move on. We are supposed to be out of the space in 17 minutes, which we're going to do our best to get as close as possible. Any final comments?
Next meeting of the Economic Development Committee is Thursday, April 18th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. To attend, please go to anc1b.org. Thank you.
Commissioner Fields, you are up again for Committee on Public Safety and Community Engagement. And I would just ask all the commission chairs to maybe think about timeliness in their updates. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm not sure why I'm not showing up. Oh, here I am on the call. Sorry. All right. Let me get it together. So I did put together a couple pictures just for references at this point. This should be pretty quick, but I do want to stop and recognize the homicide that did happen in the area. I know Commissioner Lakatos reached out to me, as well as resident Julia, to share their concerns with this issue. This definitely is a huge grievance for our community. It's unfortunate because we know something similar has happened in LaDroit Park neighborhood. That's not something that we condone. We actually were able to have Lieutenant DeRue at our last meeting to share crime statistics and updates. She did share the MP has confiscated 57 guns to date. So that is good to know that they are working on that, that they are, monitoring what's going on in the area. So we hope to see more of that. If you have more questions, please attend our next meeting. We saw that property crime went down. And so we only had 81 property crimes, which is a small improvement, but we should count it. And then they are saying that crime went down by 1,013 citywide compared to this time last year. So these are just a few of the statistics for ANC 1B in the area, and you can look this up on DC crime cards. At this time, I believe the one vote that we have is to support Vermont Avenue Garden work parties. There actually is a representative here. He did attend our PSC meeting, and we all agreed that we would love to support them again in their efforts to keep the area clean, especially the area around the U Street Metro stop. They do planning and gardening, and it just adds the community vibe and feel. So at this time, I would like to move that we support Vermont Avenue Garden work parties in their sponsorship application.
Second.
Discussion?
Support.
Okay, I think we can take a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes with 7 votes in favor.
All right, thank you so much. Lastly, I know that another area of huge concern was the parking lot where the former CVS was. And so Howard announced earlier this month that they have decided on a partnership with Sweet Nation to reimagine the CVS parking lot. And so it will be an art space for animation, community engagement, and activation. Their hours would be between Monday and Saturday. So they'll have community programming, social experiential events and activities, gallery receptions, and other events of the sort from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. And so they're trying to fundraise $250,000 to renovate the space. But the space has been secured and will be taken over by Sweet Nation. So that is a good update. As we know, a lot of drugs and other issues have been in that area. So we're going to get more resources. Just also wanted to highlight that Lieutenant Andrew spoke to Secure DC and some of the streets that were highlighted. And she did note that 7th and T Street was of a high concern and that there was a drug-free zone there established during the first period of Secure DC bill. Lastly, the Metropolitan Police Department has been hosting faith walks in association with local churches. So their next one is going to be April 17th. It'll start at 4:30 p.m. and end at 5 p.m. It's at 2033 11th Street. And so please attend if you have the opportunity or the chance to. And then the last one, we approved funding for community yoga. So there'll be another community yoga event on April 14th at the Anthony Bowen YMCA Community Room at 4 p.m. So we invite everyone to attend. We'll try to get more information about this up on the website. So thank you guys so much. With that being said, our next meeting will be on, apologies for that. Our next meeting will be on April 9th, which is next week at 7 p.m. via Zoom, and you can register on the website. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any quick questions? Sure.
I've been actually working with the city closely around Howard and the lighting situations from just being off, making it more dangerous at night. So we recently had 4th Street done in record time to make sure that the lighting all is cool lighting, which is different than warm lighting. It's opened up the area, making it a lot safer. They're currently on, I think it's Berry Place, or I'm sorry if I'm saying the wrong street name, but it is Berry. I know that. So we're making an impact even in as 1B commissioners, even though it's in 1E, we try to work to make sure the area is safer for all. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, let's do the Committee on Transportation. Commissioner Lakatos.
Sure. So there are no resolutions to vote on. There are some representatives here from Last Energy, Lyle and Josh. If you could give like a 1 minute. So they are activating a public space. If you are familiar, yes. Kent, could you give them the microphone? They're activating, if you're familiar with the vacant lot at 10th and V Street, they're doing a sort of like a miniature public space activation there, but as brief as possible. But thank you for being here and waiting.
I'll go as quickly as I can. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lyle Morton. This is my colleague, Josh Messner. I live in Adams Morgan. He lives in Mount Pleasant. We work at Last Energy, as he just said, a DC-based climate tech company. We're headquartered just down the street in the newly renovated Grimke building. We occupy about 2/3 of the building, have about 50 employees living here in the district. We're here today. The purpose of us coming here today is just to make the council aware of our plans to bring a display prototype for our power plant module to a lot which we have leased on 2105 10th Street. That's 10th and V. Last Energy's goal is to decarbonize energy production and increase access to clean, affordable power with micro modular nuclear power plants. And that's and for those who want to find out more about what we do, I encourage you to go to lastenergy.com and find out more. We have received public occupancy permit approval from the Department of Transportation to move our prototype into the district. And it will be moving in the coming weeks. We're working on the final timing of that now. We are here just to provide you information about this. Happy to take questions. I know we're pressed for time. I had more information here.
Just to be clear, so everyone knows, you're not bringing any sort of reactor. It's just a fake, the demonstration of what it looks like. There's nothing.
That's entirely correct. This is a display prototype of a power plant that comes together like sort of like a Lego building blocks. What you'll see on the site is a large rectangular sort of steel structure. It is here for educational and display purposes only. Our headquarters are approximately 2 blocks from the site you see here. The actual mounting of the unit into this structure will not require any significant construction or disruption to the neighborhood. No use of parking permits or anything like that. Should be pretty quick and painless. And we look forward to talking with the community once it's here about what it is and what it represents.
Thanks so much. I will add as the last Transportation Committee update, because I know we have 10 minutes. If you're interested in joining, please contact me at 1b04@anc.dc.gov. Our next meeting is next Wednesday, April 10th at 7 p.m. You can register at anc1b.org. Thank you.
Any questions for the commissioner?
Just quick comment. I'm so happy you're doing this. I live on the other side of that on W Street, and I'm just glad it's being used. So thank you so much for all your work. Maybe we can make that a dog park too.
Way to tie it in. All right, our last committee update, going back to Commissioner Jones for zoning, preservation, and development.
Thank you. This will be quick. We had no business at our last meeting. The next meeting of ANC 1B Zoning Preservation and Development Committee is Monday, April 15th at 6:30 p.m. Via Zoom. As with all of our committee meetings, you can attend via checking the ANC 1B website, anc1b.org. Thank you.
Well, that was very impressive. Next up, we're going to go to administrative items. After that, we'll do executive, council member, commissioner, and community announcements, and then new business. So the first up, we have a vacancy in 1B02. It actually represents several of the areas we talked about tonight, including the CVS location, the potential dog park / the triangle outside the Howard Theater, and the 9th Street corridor where it hits Florida and U. There was one individual who submitted their petitions that there is a challenge period for those petitions that started today that goes through April 10th if you are interested in challenging. And assuming there are no challenges, we will seat that individual in time for our May meeting. So we are excited to be able to welcome a new commissioner. There at this point does not seem like there would be an election unless something has changed and we have to reopen the vacancy. Also wanted to flag that we are going through a process to look at our bylaws and our SOPs. These have been posted on our website for years. The bylaws are very short and give very broad strokes for how we govern. The SOPs are more of the day-to-day user guide. They are too long and too confusing. And so we're going to start with the bylaws, but kind of do them in conjunction together. We hope to bring the first conversation to the community at our May meeting. So just wanted to preview that so folks knew that it was coming. And Cedric will jump in and tell me if I missed anything on that. And then otherwise, I think we can go to announcements, starting with the Ward 1 Councilmember's office, Nicole. All right, awesome. Office of the Mayor, Drod.
Wait, I did have like one question, if that's okay. We want to grab the microphone real quick. Sorry. I did know the council member talked about new trash cans that she was talking about that for rat abatement. Is there any any cost to residents, and how do they get a hold of that? Because I actually just had a huge meeting about this yesterday with constituents.
Are you talking about her comments about the curbside system, the composting?
I believe maybe if I'm not mistaken, she was talking about new trash cans with new lids that help keep rats out.
So when we were talking about rats, we were talking about the composting pilot, which is, keeping food waste out of the regular trash cans. There's nothing in the budget currently that I'm aware of for replacements of residential trash cans.
Okay. Is there a process? Do they have to go 311 for that? Okay.
Yeah, you can request through 311, and I would also encourage folks. DPW is really great at repairing cans.
Okay.
There are a lot of cans that can be repaired, usually at no cost, and it'll extend the life of your can.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Yep. Thank you. We're Office of the Mayor. I think I saw Drod. Drod's gone.
He's here. Woo.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I'm gonna keep it short. I do have a couple of updates. Some in the city is coming up. Give me 1 second, guys. Some in the city. District families are invited to attend the 2nd annual Summit in the City, which will take place on Saturday, April 6th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Raymond Elementary School, located 915 Spring Road, Northwest. District youth and families will hear from approximately 50 government agencies, nonprofit organizations, community stakeholders about various programming available to them. I'm also going to add that at the Nationals Park all year, DC residents will get $5 tickets to all Nats games. Just wanted to put that out there. And I'll take all questions right now.
You said $5 tickets?
Say it again.
It's $5 tickets to Nats games?
$5 tickets for any DC resident all year.
You have to buy it at the park?
You might can do it online.
Or
I'll
online.
send you an email. I'll check my email to see if that option is available for you guys.
That's awesome. Everyone take advantage of that.
Yeah. Any questions?
Any other questions for Drod? All right. We're going to do commissioner announcements and then community announcements. Commissioners.
So someone had brought to my attention, which I'll be sending to the entire commission, thanks to Director Bass too, which helping me get a hold of Mr. Andrew Gerst. There's some zoning changes coming abroad and that were decided on February 2nd of 2024 to amend various subtitles in zoning regulations, Title 11 of the District Columbia Municipal Regulations via text amendments. These proposed amendments have been the source of much discussion among the various ANCs and the Office of Attorney General's Equitable Land and use section. The following are some of the major proposed changes, and this I want everyone to really hear. For a new proposed subsection subtitle, I'm not going to go through all that, would attempt rulemaking map amendments proposed by either the Office of Planning or ANC from the requirement to provide notice of the public hearing to all property owners within 200 feet of the property. That is the subject of the map amendment. OAG believes that this title justification has been provided for this exemption and questions why government titles should be held to a lower standard of notice than other petitioners. OAG notes that as the application types, the only information that OP or the ANC would need in order to provide this notice is the list of owners within 200 feet. Very simple request. That is available from the Office of Tax and Revenue. The mailing of the notice would be done by the Office of Zoning, and given these requirement is applicable to only small subset of cases, providing these notices would be constitute on undue burden. Lump this up in some, the Office of ANC, Mr. Gerst had said that they also are not really in favor of this. I'm not really sure how this or why this was pushed through, but it is definitely giving not enough notice or no notice at all to people that live within 200 feet of certain areas, and also I would assume almost lose great weight for ANCs as well. So I'll forward that to the other commissioners, but I do think that's something we should push back on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's the first I'm hearing of it. Others. Other announcements? Community announcements? Any online? I think there was a community question. Someone, Randy, was that you?
I owe Mr. Jones an email, and I owe some other folks an email. So, Mr. Randy Jones, you're correct. I need to get back to you. And if other people are interested in joining the Zoning Preservation and Development Committee or the Economic Development Committee, please send me an email at 1b09@anc.dc.gov. Mr. Jones, thank you for your persistence on this.
Yeah, Tucker, what's your overall thinking on setting up the committee, like timing wise?
I intend to, within the next week, email you and other people who are interested. There's a little bit of a complication that is not a good excuse for delaying as long as I did. So I don't expect you to accept it. But
well, if it's a child, then absolutely go for it.
No, so one of the complications is that I'm
just kidding.
Our standard operating procedures that Commissioner Handerhan spoke to a minute ago require committee membership to effectively not be dominated by neighbors from any one single member district. It's not supposed to be more than, I think, 30% membership from any one single member district. And I have not gone through in a systematic way and tried to figure out how to handle that requirement while respecting all the interests of our many neighbors in joining our committees. So I have not put aside the time yet to resolve that. I intend to do that within the next week, and I will email you.
Okay. Happy to help if you need an extra hand.
Thank you.
We always need an extra hand, so thank you. I don't see any other announcements, so we're going to go on to new business. Commissioners Radade, Duramo, and Jones and Lakatos for a resolution in opposition to the Initiative Amendment Act of 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I'm introducing the resolution in opposition to the Initiative Amendment Act of 2023. If you like to read very small text, it is on the screen. The power of the people of DC to propose ballot initiatives is a fundamental democratic right guaranteed to the people by the Home Rule Act. The people of DC have used this power judiciously and decisively. We passed Initiative 71 to legalize marijuana. We passed Initiative 82 to raise the minimum wage of tipped workers. Both of these recent initiatives passed by enormous margins. The people of DC prize their ability to propose initiatives and do not intend to relinquish it. The Home Rule Act contains one important restriction on the initiative power, that initiatives cannot appropriate funds. That is to say, the people may pass new laws by initiative, but the power to fund their implementation lies with the council. The council may also choose not to fund the implementation of an initiative. That is the prerogative of the council. Courts have affirmed that prerogative. The activists and advocacy organizations behind recent initiatives, 71, 77, 82, 83, have affirmed that prerogative. No one disputes it. However, some members of council have taken umbrage at the fact that initiatives cost money to implement, which they mischaracterize, as forcing the hand of council into making appropriations to fund successful initiatives. Rather than opening a dialogue about their concerns, these council members have introduced a sweeping and dangerous bill, the Initiative Amendment Act, which would upend the legal framework for ballot initiatives by disqualifying any initiative that depends upon an appropriation to implement. In other words, this bill would disqualify any initiative that has any fiscal implementation cost. To the best of my imagination, I cannot think of one possible meaningful ballot initiative that would not entail at least some small implementation cost, such as the cost of education and outreach. In effect, therefore, this bill would gut the initiative power. It is a hasty solution in search of a problem. It is undemocratic, and it is shameful. We already lack democratic rights as DC citizens. Our own council should not be seeking to take away even more rights. Rather, we expect the council to defend and expand our rights. I hope you join me in sending a strong message to the council about this reckless legislation. I want to thank my co-sponsors, Commissioners Jones and Lakatos, for their support. I would also like to thank the commissions that have already adopted resolutions in opposition to the Initiative Amendment Act, Commissions 1C, 1E, 2A, 3D, and 8F. And with that, I move that this commission adopt the resolution in opposition to the Initiative Amendment Act.
Second.
Second that.
We have a seconded motion. Is there discussion?
I have a quick comment. Thank you so much, Miguel, for leading this. I just as protocol, I don't sign on to letters generally. So I apologize for not doing that, but I will be supporting this, even though there have been ballot initiatives that I have not supported in the past and that have passed. I believe that the council does need to recognize the voice of the people. So I would encourage all of my colleagues to really support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. The council always has the option of overriding an initiative or choosing not to fund it, as Commissioner Trindade Duramo has already said. In fact, we've seen them do this. The first effort to raise the minimum wage, the sub-minimum wage, was overridden by council action, and a second referendum forced the issue. This seems like a way effectively for council members who hold unpopular positions to not be asked why they hold that and to not have people force the issues. To reiterate Commissioner Trindade Duramo's point, I can't think of a single initiative that wouldn't have any cost at all. Even something as innocuous as changing our state fish from the American shad, fun fact, even changing that would require changing the signs at Kingman Park that proudly show off our state fish, the American shad. So if it were changing something else, even that would have at least a couple of $1,000s of costs. If that sounds like a ridiculous thing, it is, and that would be the outcome of the Initiative Amendment Act as currently proposed, which is why I'm supporting this resolution in opposition to the Initiative Amendment Act.
I'm also going to be supporting this. I can't even believe we're talking about this. This is nonsense. It's crazy. We're supposed to be listening to the people. I mean, this is becoming like, this is just ridiculous. So I would hope that everyone sitting in this chair and everyone out there is listening to this and understanding that, they're taking away things that make no sense, and they shouldn't be doing that. So I will be supporting this.
I do have one more quick question. Do we know where our council member stands on this? She's not a co-introducer. It's Mendelson and Bonds. Thank you for the clarification.
I think it sounds like we're ready for a vote. So all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So the motion passes, meaning the resolution passes with 7 votes in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstentions. We have one other item of new business, which will be the last thing we discuss tonight. Back to you, Commissioner Trindade Duramo.
Thank you very much. Briefly, I am moving that the commission create a new line item in its fiscal year 24 budget to accommodate the work that we intend our marketing and communications intern to carry out. We have hired a marketing and communications intern recently. Principally, we expect to fund printed materials that Ms. Taylor can carry with her as she canvasses the commission area, engaging residents and businesses with a view to educating them about the work of the commission, who the commissioners are, and how to reach us or otherwise get involved. I'm moving an initial budget of $5,000 to provide ample room for multiple materials, including materials specialized for different audiences, as Ms. Taylor and our executive committee deem appropriate. I remind commissioners that we have repeatedly expressed our intent to spend down our formidable treasury, and in my opinion, there is no more justifiable expense than outreach to and inclusion of our own constituents in our activities. So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion?
I would just like to, for context, we are giving ourselves a budget of $5,000. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend all of the $5,000. I spoke with Commissioner Trindade Durham on this just to give ourselves some room to move within the, within this. We could end up spending less. We could end up spending all of it. It's just to kind of give us some room.
Thanks for clarification.
Spoken like a true financier. I love it. Let's keep it below. There's a quick question for clarification. Can we as commissioners use this, say, for example, not obviously for campaigning or anything of that nature, but like say we're having a community meeting, but it would be in a specific SMD. Can we use it that way, or is it just for general outreach or events for the whole commission?
I have worded the motion very vague, very broadly, so that the executive committee managing the intern can decide at its discretion what to fund. I don't know that we need to, maybe the treasurer can provide context if we need to develop internal rules or if there are external ones.
My general understanding and the way our procedures have kind of worked in the past is that outreach material is on behalf of the commission. So if this is sort of like you're having an event and you bring, this is, we have flyers that say this is ANC 1B. That is what it is for. It is not for specific individual commissioners to use, like kind of at their discretion. I'm not that you're saying that's what you're suggesting, but like that is sort of like where the barrier kind of is.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes 7-0-0. Thank you so much. Before I motion for adjournment, I just want to note that our next meeting is Thursday, May 2nd at 6:30. It is going to be a virtual one. We're trying to do the hybrid once a quarter. With that, I move that we adjourn. We don't need a second, so all those in favor? All right, 7 in favor, all those opposed and abstentions are 0. So thank you everyone for bearing with us, and we are adjourning at 8:39, so close to our deadline. Thank you so much for bearing with us.